Is appalling.
Life savings are on the line.
I'm 102,000 euros in debt.
And these chefs are about to get served.
When's one of you going to step forward with a pair of bollocks?
Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares. Back-to-back episodes every big Thursday starting at 8 on BBC America.
This is a man who almost learned to walk at a rehab center that almost got built by people who almost gave money. Almost gave. How good is almost giving? About as good as almost walking.
Nothing But Nets is a global campaign to fight one of the largest killers in Africa, malaria.
These kids are dying needlessly just because there's not a net over their beds. That's all we have in sports is nets. And you're telling me nets alone would save lives? That's the easiest thing ever.
So if you can log on to nothingbutnets.net, donate $10 and help us cover Africa.
Destinations in mainland China.
On BBC America, it's fierce.
What did you think about that?
It's competitive.
We really are going to go for it.
It's grueling.
You are killing me right now.
And it's bloody good fun.
There could have been a bit more quick step.
The dance sensation that rocks the world is on BBC America.
That was fun. It was fast. It was fantastic.
Dancing with the Stars. BBC America premiere. Sunday at 8 p.m.
Think you've seen it all. Think again.
On January 26th.
Ready?
Off we go. The premiere of an all-new season. Doctor Who at 7. Then at 9, BBC America's biggest hit ever returns.
Now when are the others coming?
They're already here. A new season of Torchwood. BBC America's Supernatural Saturday.
Nothing will ever be the same again.
Series premiere, Saturday, January 26th at 7 on Supernatural Saturday.
BBC America, a little Brit different.
Hello, welcome to the BBC's World Business Report. I'm Tanya Beckett. Oil starts the new year at over $100 a barrel. Will it go higher in 2008? A weak dollar gives gold more chance to shine.
And the Chinese yuan hits a fresh high against a weakening US dollar.
Hello, welcome once again. Oil prices have hit record highs around the world. The US benchmark NYMEX light topped $100 a barrel before falling back late during Wednesday's trade. Many attribute the peak to a single rogue trade, but that doesn't negate the trend. Oil's seemingly unstoppable rise from the world's largest oil-consuming nation, the US. Karen Nye sends this report.
Oil traders rush to get back in the game after a slow holiday period.
Here at the New York Mercantile Exchange, oil has traded above $100 a barrel for the first time ever. It was an actual paper trade, the old-fashioned way, just one trader shouting a price to another. What an exciting way to start out the trading year for one of the world's most basic commodities.
Bullish traders welcomed Wednesday's price spike.
I believe we're going to hit 100 and actually go through there. I believe we're going to be trading 115 within the next couple of months.
Logic. Some analysts dismissed the move as pure speculation on the part of traders.
These are people are betting their hard money that oil prices will go up. So guess what? They are cheering for higher oil prices.
The rally may be speculative, but the effects on the economy are almost guaranteed.
Higher oil prices or $100 oil will eventually dampen demand growth. We are already seeing signs of that. 2, it will slow down economic growth. 3, it will push inflation up.
Even technical traders can boil down the maths to basics for the consumer.
The story of $100 has really been developing for a while, and today's just the affirmation of what you were feeling at home economically.
On Thursday, a new report on oil supplies is expected to give another nod to the bulls, who could well push prices higher. Karen Nye, BBC News, New York.
Well, most commodities, as we know, are priced in US dollars. The weakening dollar means that commodity prices rise to maintain their world value. Now, for this reason, gold hit another record high. It soared past $866 per troy ounce. And many believe the precious metal is set to hit new peaks this year and in the coming weeks, maybe even topping $880. Ben Pedley from LGT Bank says he believes that gold is going to gleam very brightly in 2008.
We're going to see inflation being the theme of 2008. We talked about this a few weeks ago before Christmas. I remain of the view that gold is going to continue to be a very attractive store of value for not only Asian central banks, but I think investors in general.
Ben Pedley there talking about the gold price and its prospects for 2008. Well, the prospects for the US dollar don't look quite so happy for 2008, and its impact, the impact of the weakness, is certainly being felt at the moment on the currency markets. Aruna Iyengar is at the London Stock Exchange. Aruna, how is this being felt?
Yes, Tanya, we're seeing general dollar weakness, and we have been seeing that over the past year. But one currency that seems to be rising strongly against the dollar at the moment is the Chinese yuan. It seems to be experiencing a mini revaluation. It's hit a fresh high against the US dollar today. It reached 7.27 to the dollar, and that's the highest level since China abolished the peg with the US dollar back in July 2005. It's been rising since late October, up to 2.6% since then. And some say that China's central bank will allow the yuan to reach 7.25 to the dollar by this week. Now, the weakness of the US dollar is a factor in this, but the yuan has been strengthening against other currencies as well. There's also a belief that China is now happy to let the yuan appreciate, and that's as a result of pressure from governments in the Eurozone and particularly the United States. They've been calling for this for some time, but so far China's been resistant to this because it's wanted to protect its exports. What's different now are there are huge inflationary pressures in China. We've got this booming oil price up at $100 a barrel, also high food prices in China. So for the first time, China is actually saying it will use the higher exchange rate to the dollar to counter these inflationary pressures and these inflationary effects of the high oil price. A stronger yuan means that China has greater purchasing power for raw materials and for oil. Now, against other currencies as well, the dollar has been falling. It's been falling, as you know, Tanya, against the yen. It's now, the dollar now buys 108 yen. It's also flat against the Korean won. The Korean won actually fell earlier today because of the high oil price. Korea is the world's fourth largest importer of oil, so obviously the high oil price is impacting strongly on the Korean currency. Also, weakness in the US economy and the expectation of further interest rate falls in the United States means that the dollar will be under pressure for some time. Back to you, Tanya.
Aruna, thank you very much indeed. So it's a rather interesting start, isn't it, to 2008? Record high commodity prices are stoking inflation at a time when many of the world's economies are weakened by the gloomy outlook for the United States. The US is, of course, is the world's top trading partner and biggest consumer. So when Americans stop buying, the whole world suffers as a result. Add to that the dollar's decline, which makes foreign goods dearer for ordinary Americans, and you have a bit of a double whammy going on. Who could tell us a little bit more about this? Well, Jamie Chisholm is the Deputy Markets Editor of the Financial Times. And it is true, is it not, Jamie, that a few months ago when we were talking about the Federal Reserve cutting interest rates to stave off the effects of the credit crunch, people weren't really talking about inflation, but they certainly are now.
Yes, people are a bit concerned about inflation now. Obviously, as your previous correspondents have mentioned, the oil price in particular is inflationary. Food prices, as not just China but everywhere else, are going up. They are concerned about inflation. Rather strangely, though, it was very interesting yesterday that US bond yields fell so sharply. Long bond yields fell quite a lot despite this inflationary concern. And there were quite a few paradoxes in the market yesterday in the way it behaved.
Do you think that this really could turn the corner now from being a slowdown for the United States into a recession because of these concerns about inflation curbing the ability of the central bank in the US to cut rates?
That's the big concern. What we don't want to be seeing is any data coming out of the US which suggests stagnation plus inflation. Because quite rightly you say that it means the Federal Reserve, whose mandate is to keep employment at reasonable levels and to make sure inflation doesn't take off, it reduces the ability for them to cut interest rates. Now, the minutes yesterday suggested they are still very worried about growth, but they always have to keep saying in those minutes that they keep an eye on inflation. That's their job. We shall see what happens. But at the moment, the data is going to be really key here.
Europe, meanwhile, appears to be moving along in a fairly confident manner. Could that all change very suddenly?
Well, it depends if you believe in the theory of decoupling, which is supposed to suggest that it was the case once when the US sneezed, the rest of the world caught a cold. Now, if the US sneezes, the rest of the world just says gesundheit and walks on its way. But if we don't have decoupling and the US economy does slow down, I really can't see how Europe won't be affected by this. Sure, some of the slack will be taken up by the more dynamic economies such as China and India, Brazil, etc. But Europe will start slowing if the US goes into recession, certainly.
And how worrying is this inflation problem in Asia, particularly in China? I'm sure that he had a very insightful answer, but unfortunately he wasn't able to give it because technology let us down at the crucial moment. Isn't that often just the way? Let's move on to the car sector. One sector very concerned about all of the problems. The economic outlook for the United States is certainly the car industry. High fuel prices tend to put people off buying new cars, of course, and tempt them towards cheaper models. The situation's especially difficult for the big US car makers like Ford and General Motors, who are experiencing tough competition in their home market from Japanese rivals. We'll see the sales figures for the US a bit later on today. Professor Garel Rees from Cardiff University's Business School gave us his predictions for US car makers in 2008.
I think it's very good, and of course in some ways the increase in the oil price might be a pointer, because American cars, although they've downsized the engine sizes they have, they're still very big in European terms. And of course the leisure purpose trucks, the multi-purpose vehicles, the minivans as the Americans call them, the SUVs, the 4x4s and the pickups, they have very big engines and therefore consume petrol, and not so much diesel in America, but petrol, in enormous amounts. So the increase in the price of petrol is now beginning to hit the decision-making of the American car consumer. And because the American manufacturers do tend to have their center of gravity where the bigger engines are concerned, and the very big engines, it hits them first.
Garel Rees there of Cardiff University. Let's take a look at what's then happening in the stock markets with a concern about the outlook for the US economy. And as we haven't yet mentioned, we also saw some very poor figures for the manufacturing sector in the United States. They emerged during yesterday's trade, again the first day of trading, which saw the Dow Jones fall 220 points. That is not, by anybody's standards, a great start to the year. And the European markets are following suit in percentage terms by nothing like as much, but you can see that the concern is absolutely there, particularly with the oil price edging up just a little bit further and the potential for it to move through $100 a barrel, which psychologically is a very important point. So as you can see them falling back there, I'll just show you what's happened elsewhere in the markets, if I can, if they're going to work with me. But the US dollar, as we know, is still very much under pressure, and that being felt very much in the currency markets. Well, in a moment we have sport today. That's it from me, Tanya Beckett. Thanks for joining us on the BBC's World Business Report.
The fastest growing economy in the world is being created in Qatar. The Qatar Financial Center, at the heart of business.
Are you getting an HD TV this holiday season? Dish Network's got you covered. Current customers call and get Dish HD, the best sports and movies in HD, free for 6 months. Dish Network has over 70 national HD channels available, and you can get a great deal on a Dish HD DVR that's better than TiVo. We want to make sure your new HD TV is giving you all it can with Dish HD, the leader in HD. Call 1-888-222-2719 and upgrade to Dish HD today.
Get the hottest Akon ringtones on your phone now. Grab your cell phone, text the code of the song to number 40100. Text AK25 for I Wanna Love You. Text AC25 for Smack That. Send it to number 40100. Akon ringtones on your phone now. Text AK25 for I Wanna Love You. Text AC25 for Smack That. Send it to number 40100. Just wait a little bit for the reply message and then follow the instructions to download now.
Sunday. Dancing is as easy as BBC. BBC America. The show that had millions on their feet is now on BBC America.
Like watching Happy Feet all over again.
Dancing with the Stars. BBC America premiere. Sunday at 8 p.m.
Tonight at 7 and 10. The road to Washington starts in Iowa, and BBC World News America is there. Matt Fry reports live from the Iowa Caucuses, bringing you closer to the candidates, the voters, and taking you inside the process of picking a president. BBC World News America, live from Iowa, weeknights at 7 and 10 on BBC America, and around the globe on BBC World.
Every weekday afternoon on BBC America is a life-changing experience.
My way or the highway.
Starting at 3, how clean is your house? Then at 4, you are what you eat.
You have got to be sorted out.
Transform your afternoons. Weekdays starting at 3.
I'm Adnan Nawaz. This is Sport Today on BBC World. Coming up, extra time is the perfect time for Espanyol. They are into the last 16 of the Copa del Rey in Spain. Gatlin vows to fight his drugs ban. The 100 metres champion refuses to give up his dream of defending the Olympic title. And it's farewell to a giant of international rugby union. The World Cup winner Lawrence Dallaglio says his England days are now behind him. Well, Liverpool Football Club have won 18 English League titles in their history, but not a single one since 1990. It really looks now as if the famous club will have to wait at least another season to end that long drought. That after they were held to a 1-1 draw by Wigan on Wednesday. It leaves them in 5th place in the Premier League and 12 points behind the leaders Arsenal. The result also puts the pressure on the Liverpool boss Rafa Benitez. And another manager who may well be worrying about his job security is Sam Allardyce. His Newcastle side were beaten 2-0 at home to Manchester City. And there were also wins on Wednesday for Blackburn and Bolton. Now that victory for Man City takes them up to 4th in the table. And after the match, City's manager Sven-Göran Eriksson, well, he was asked about the precarious position of his opposite number at Newcastle, Allardyce.
The longer you are in football, you know that sooner or later it will happen to all of us. And it happened many times to me as well. You have to be tough. You have to not listen to everything which is, they say about you. But Sam Allardyce, I mean, he's a very, very good manager, and he showed that in the past, and he will be a very good manager for Newcastle as well. Just give him some time, and he will sort it out, I'm sure.
More than 50,000 were at St James's Park to see Newcastle lose the match, and not for the first time the home side were booed off the pitch. They're in mid-table, 24 points off the lead.
The fans' frustration with how things are going, and you know, I think the most important thing is that when we take the field, that the players give everything they've got, and you know, I mean, if we do that week in, week out, we will turn the corner. There's no doubt about that. But like I say, they are difficult times for us at this moment in time, but it's not a time for people to go under and not take responsibility. And you know, we've got another big game coming up now in the FA Cup, and we have to look forward to that and put in a decent performance.
3 of Wednesday's scheduled games in the Scottish Premier League were postponed as a mark of respect for the Motherwell captain Phil O'Donnell, who died after collapsing on the pitch on Saturday. At the 3 games that did go ahead, players and fans paid their respects to the man known as Uncle Phil. There was a minute's applause before kick-off, the 35-year-old having died of a heart seizure. Well, 5 players were sent off in those 3 games. Hearts ending with only 8 men as they lost 4-1 to 4th place Dundee United. Barry Robson scored a hat-trick for Dundee United in that match, but given the feelings of the day, he said afterwards his 3 goals meant absolutely nothing. There were also wins for Aberdeen and Falkirk. Moving to Spain, where $1 million a man bonus on offer to Real Madrid's players for the treble of the Champions League, the Spanish League and the Spanish Cup is still in place, but only just. Their tie against 3rd Division Alicante was heading for extra time when Jose Maria Guti struck an injury time winner to send Madrid through by an aggregate score of 3-2. Barcelona progressed thanks to a 5-2 aggregate defeat of Alcoyano, while Villarreal, they completed a second successive 2-1 victory over Las Palmas. The cup holders Sevilla held on to edge out Denia 5-4 over the 2 legs. Atletico Madrid edged past Granada 3-2 on aggregate. Real Betis, more comfortable winners, 4-1 over the 2 legs against Elche. In 2 top division clashes, Espanyol needed extra time before completing an away win against Deportivo, while Valladolid edged out Real Murcia 4-3 on aggregate.
Thank heavens the players turned up, because the fans decided this was a game worth missing. They weren't that far wrong either. There were moments of class, like Luis Garcia's opener, that took Espanyol into an aggregate lead, but most of the game seemed to reach a potential peak and then fizzle out. Even the moments of controversy had an air of resignation about them. A harshly awarded penalty was barely contested, much like Sergio's strike. It meant the game went to extra time and another episode of calamity keeping. Raul Temudo unable to understand just how he'd scored the winner. Things were far more exciting in Murcia, where Valladolid edged a thriller. They grabbed the aggregate lead after just 11 minutes. A long punt upfield was volleyed across the box for Bartholomew Ogbechi to knock in. But defending corners wasn't in the visitors' Christmas training programme. Well, at least it didn't appear to have been, as Ricardo Ricci equalised before the break. 2 goals, though, in 6 second-half minutes swung the tide decisively in Valladolid's favour. The first came from Diego Camacho, while the long punt upfield worked for a second time, as Fabian Estoyanov ensured that even the late reply from Murcia wasn't enough to take them into the last 16. Anthony Waller, BBC News.
In cricket, India 247 runs behind Australia after day 2 of the second test in Sydney, and the tourists also have plenty of wickets in hand. The home side were eventually all out for 463 in their first innings, but the tourists have responded in style. VVS Lakshman hit 18 fours and a knock of 109 for India. He enjoyed a second wicket stand of 175 with Rahul Dravid. The pair, though, were dismissed just before the close, so India will restart on 216 for 3. Earlier in the day, Andrew Simons made an unbeaten 162 for the home side as Australia aimed for a record-equalling 16th test win in a row. In Cape Town, the West Indies were bowled out for 243 in their first innings, shortly after the start of the second day's play of the second test against South Africa. Shivnarine Chanderpaul, their top scorer, with an unbeaten 65, and in reply, South Africa 71 for 2. Now, the New Zealand fast bowler Shane Bond looks set to become the very latest player to join the 2020 Indian Cricket League. Bond has refused to comment on reports he's about to turn his back on New Zealand's national side. But the Cricket Board's chief executive believes they're fighting a losing battle to keep him. If 32-year-old Bond does indeed join other stars, such as Brian Lara and Inzamam ul Haq, New Zealand selectors have already been told they should consider other players before the fast bowler. The American sprinter Justin Gatlin is to challenge the 4-year suspension which will prevent him from defending his Olympic 100 metres title in Beijing. An arbitration panel halved the ban the American received for a positive test back in 2006. But Gatlin's agent says his client may now file a federal lawsuit, appeal to the world governing body for athletics, or even the ultimate arbiter, the Court of Arbitration for Sport in Switzerland. Gatlin could have received a lifetime ban because it was his second offence, but his appeal, that will almost certainly centre on the fact his first offence in 2001 was due to amphetamines he was taking to deal with attention deficit disorder. The former England Rugby Union captain Lawrence Dallaglio will hold a news conference later this Thursday to announce his retirement from the international game. 35-year-old Dallaglio won 85 caps for England. He was the only man to play every single minute of the successful 2003 World Cup campaign. Despite criticising England's head coach Brian Ashton in an autobiography published after the 2007 World Cup, Kieran Bracken, who was part of the winning squad in 2003, says Dallaglio's legacy, it'll certainly be a positive one.
He's had so many ups and downs on and off the pitch, spanning from on the pitch, playing for Wasps, winning European Cups in the last seconds, winning World Cups, and just a couple of words off the pitch, with his book doesn't necessarily, I don't think, count that much against him. I think he's had a fantastic career. He's a fantastic rugby player, a great guy to be around, and I'd like to think that he's still going to be involved in English rugby, and I'd love to see him involved with the coaching, because he has a lot to add. He has a lot to add with leadership, with these young guys coming on, and I think it's important he's kept in the game. And I could imagine Brian Ashton will be first on the phone, congratulating him on his career, and maybe even asking if he wants to get involved in coaching.
In Perth, Australia, the United States have won through to their 9th final in the 20-year history of the Hopman Cup tennis tournament. Serena Williams opened the USA's final round-robin tie against Australia with the straight sets defeat of Alicia Molik. And then in the men's singles, Serena's teammate Mardy Fish beat Peter Luchak with 2 successive tie breaks. So at that point, the USA already had an unassailable lead, but they went one better. They joined forces to take the doubles as well. The USA have won 3 of the previous 5 Hopman Cup titles, and it looks as if they're going to take some stopping in the final. And finally, in the NHL, the Detroit Red Wings have a huge 11-point lead at the top of the Western Conference after a 4-1 home win over their closest rivals, the Dallas Stars. Detroit took the lead after 12 minutes. Dan Cleary's first effort blocked, but then he made no mistake with the rebound. It was his 13th goal of the season. The home side doubled their advantage in the second period. Johan Franzen showing some wonderful skill to send the Dallas goalie Marty Turco the wrong way, and then he slipped the puck into an empty net. Dallas Drake put Detroit 3 up, and then Pavel Datsyuk showed some wonderful hand-eye coordination, and he deflected home a slap shot to make it 4-0. The Stars scored a consolation less than a minute later, but it's certainly the Red Wings who are the best in the West at the moment. Next here on BBC World, the latest international news. That's with Mike Embley. Thanks very much indeed for your company. Bye-bye.
Some think startup. We think IPO. Some think competition. We think partnership. Some think successful business. We think wealth protection. Whatever your vision, we at Credit Suisse seek new perspectives to make it a reality.
Uttarakhand, simply heaven. The fastest growing economy in the world is being created in Qatar. The Qatar Financial Center, at the heart of business.
Latest diets. 1,800,000 results? Miracle Bud? Coffee and peanut diet? Tummy sponge? If it sounds absurd and unhealthy, chances are it is. Diets don't work. Weight Watchers does. And now with Weight Watchers Online, you learn to live healthy on our easy-to-follow plan entirely online. With countless tips, tools, recipes, over 30,000 food options, and that crazy little thing called results. Go to WeightWatchers.com/free for a free week trial. Weight Watchers. Stop dieting. Start living.
On Big Thursday.
It's confused, over the top.
It's nothing personal.
I mean, absurd beyond belief.
It's just business.
You're not a
proper chef.
Reputations are at stake.
It's appalling, really. Really is appalling.
Life savings are on the line.
I'm €102,000 in debt.
And these chefs are about to get served.
When's one of you going to step forward with a pair of bollocks?
Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares. Back-to-back episodes every big Thursday starting at 8 on BBC America.
BBC America's Comedy Friday.
He's my gynecologist. He looked straight at me and my ankles went together.
A night of comedy that comes from the heart, goes for the throat, and will have you busting a gut.
May God forgive you, you little
BBC America's Comedy Friday.
This is not an American sitcom.
Coupling, back-to-back episodes at 8. The Catherine Tate Show, all new at 9:20. Friday, starting at 8 on BBC America.
Tomato.
Tomato.
All the right cars.
That is cool.
All the right moves.
Yes!
All on the wrong side of the road.
Do you want the heater on?
Top Gear. Back-to-back episodes every Monday starting at 8. Only on BBC America.
I'm Ben Brown in Nairobi with special coverage from BBC News of the escalating crisis here in Kenya. The main headlines today: Kenya's opposition leaders have called off a mass rally they were planning to hold here in Nairobi this afternoon in protest at last week's rigged elections. It follows violent clashes between demonstrators and security forces in Nairobi, who fired water cannon, tear gas and some live ammunition into the air.
In London, I'm Mike Embley. The other international headlines. The US presidential hopefuls make their final appeals in the Midwest. The Iowa Caucuses are at last about to get underway. Back on the box, America's late-night talk shows return with or without striking writers. And the low dollar pushes gold and oil to record highs. What is the spike doing to the world economy?
Hello and welcome to the programme from Nairobi. Well, opposition leaders here in Kenya had called on 1 million people to come into Nairobi today to protest against last week's presidential election results, which they say were rigged. In the end, though, there were fierce clashes today between security forces and demonstrators who were trying to get to that rally. So in the end, the opposition leaders of the ODM party called off the rally and decided to call it for tomorrow instead. Well, it means that violence is escalating here in Kenya, which has hitherto been pretty much a rock of stability in this often very volatile area of Africa. Since the presidential election results last week, more than 300 people have died, many of them children. A report now from my colleague Jill McGivering.
It was supposed to be a peaceful protest, but the riot police had orders to break it up from the start. Tear gas forced the demonstrators to flee. The opposition called this protest in the hope of a major show of strength, but most of their supporters never made it as far as the venue, a park in Nairobi. As the police fired water cannon, they ran, some still clutching the branches and leaves they brought, symbols of peace in Kenya. The opposition leader, Raila Odinga, has described this as a defining moment for the country. He says the elections were rigged, that President Kibaki stole victory, and that Kenyans simply won't accept the result.
The people of this country are not willing to take this just lying down. Our people are not willing to just allow this government to get away with the rigging that they've done. The people want to see our democracy strengthened and expanded, rather than that the democratic space is squeezed by this government.
Both sides say they are ready to talk, but the mood is one of anger, not compromise. The Nobel Peace Laureate Archbishop Desmond Tutu has rushed to Nairobi and already met Raila Odinga. Archbishop Tutu says he hopes to mediate.
We've come to express our solidarity with the people of Kenya, to express our sympathies at the carnage that has happened. Hope, that we would be able to encourage the leadership to take action that would stop that carnage.
But at the moment, there's no sign of an end to the confusion and chaos. In Eldoret today, more families fled their homes, terrified by the killing and destruction of the last few days. The sudden explosion of violence across the country has shaken the region, and there seems little hope of resolution in this bloody and divisive conflict. Jill McGivering, BBC News.
Well, we've been out and about on the streets here in Nairobi for the last few hours, and we've witnessed for ourselves some of these very violent clashes. We've seen demonstrators who were trying to get to that mass rally time and again. They've tried to push their way into the centre of the city, but they've been pushed back, driven back by security forces firing water cannon and tear gas at them. Well, my colleague Grant Ferret is now near Uhuru Park, which is where the opposition ODM party were hoping to have this mass rally, but where they've now had to cancel it. Grant, what is the latest there?
Well, I'm just a couple of metres, as you can see, from Uhuru Park, where the rally should have taken place. And just about 10 or 15 minutes ago, the opposition was trying to explain why this rally had been called off for now. And as they were trying to explain, the police baton charged them and fired several rounds of tear gas. And then mounted police moved in behind them to clear the opposition supporters and officials. So it's quite clear that the Kenyan authorities are determined that no one was going to get near to Uhuru Park and risk this rally taking part in any fashion.
And Grant, we understand from the opposition leadership that they've rescheduled the rally for tomorrow. That's the latest we're hearing. But I guess it doesn't seem very likely that the authorities are going to allow it to happen tomorrow if they weren't prepared to have it go ahead today.
Yeah, we still don't have complete clarity about what the opposition's plans are beyond the fact that they've definitely called it off for today. And I think that's an acknowledgement of reality. I mean, I've driven around Nairobi a lot this morning, and I've been trying to check how people are getting into town. Each time a few hundred people gather, they're stopped by police at roadblocks, the police fire tear gas and use water cannon, and the protesters are dispersed. So the opposition, for now at least, is acknowledging the reality of the situation, namely that its supporters can't get here into central Nairobi. I can't imagine that the authorities will have a different opinion about this rally tomorrow or later in the week. They say it's too volatile, it's been banned, and it shouldn't take place, full stop.
And briefly, Grant, the sense I got from the demonstrators was one of real anger about these election results last week.
Yes, there are a lot of people who live in the surrounding districts of Nairobi, particularly in Kibera, a slum district, who are strong opposition supporters, and they're saying whether the authorities have banned these rallies or not, they're going to keep trying to come into town to make their voices heard and say this election was stolen. President Kibaki should not be the head of state here. Raila Odinga should be. Of course, the government says the elections were won fair and square by President Kibaki.
OK, Grant Ferret there on the streets of Nairobi, just near Uhuru Park, where that rally was to have been held. Just to repeat, if you've missed the main news at the moment, it is that the opposition here in Kenya have called off that mass rally that was planned for today after violent clashes. This is violence that's been happening not only in Nairobi in the last few days, but in many different parts of Kenya. Let's go to Mombasa. My colleague Peter Greste is there. Peter, what's the mood? What's the situation in Mombasa today?
Well, Ben, we were out in one of the townships, a township called Bombolulu earlier today, where we saw similar scenes to Nairobi, certainly not anywhere near the kinds of numbers that you saw trying to get into Uhuru Park, as Grant was explaining. But we have seen small groups of protesters, maybe 100 or so in number, fighting running battles with very heavily armed police, the police firing live rounds over the heads of those protesters, throwing tear gas canisters to try and disperse them. The police have here, as in Nairobi, worked very, very hard to try and tamp down the violence as soon as there's any sign of trouble, and they have been reasonably successful in doing so. So at the moment, there is calm across Mombasa, but still everything is very tense indeed.
And Peter, Mombasa, of course, a real destination for tourists coming to Kenya, and Kenya really does rely on the tourist trade. What indication have you had there that tourists are unpacking their bags and getting out?
Well, Ben, we understand from hoteliers and tour operators that, in fact, there hasn't been a mass exodus. Certainly there are some people that have decided that it's simply too risky to stay around, and they're already leaving. By and large, the tourists are simply hunkering down. The tourist district is fairly well sealed off from the rest of Mombasa. You might remember some 5 years ago there was a very serious bomb attack on one of the hotels here, and the tourist industry took some years to regain confidence and encourage people to come back to demonstrate that it really is safe, and they're desperately concerned that that will collapse again. The real fear here, though, Ben, I'm afraid, is over transport. This port supplies all of East Africa, not just Kenya, but it supplies the Great Lakes region, it supplies DR Congo, Tanzania, Southern Sudan, and Uganda. And nothing has passed through this port for the past 7 or 8 days. There is real gridlock. That's leaving supplies of food, of fuel, of basic commodities right across the region in seriously short supply.
And just to sum up then, Peter, the mood there really one of considerable tension.
Absolutely, Ben. Real tension, not a lot of bloodshed so far. I did see one rather seriously wounded person on the street today, but by and large, there is calm. Everything is locked down. Nothing is moving. But as you say, quite a deal of tension.
Okay, Peter Greste in Mombasa, thank you very much. And just to underline that concern about the tourism industry here, which is worth something like $800 to $900 million a year to the Kenyan economy. The British Foreign Office in London have said in the last hour or so that they're now advising against all but essential travel to Kenya. There is hope, but not great expectation, that some sort of political compromise can be arranged. Certainly leaders like Gordon Brown, the British Prime Minister, are urging the government and opposition to get together to form some sort of government of national unity until elections can be re-held. But at the moment, the picture here in Kenya, in many places, and particularly here in Nairobi, is one of escalating tension and escalating violence. From Nairobi, back now to London.
Ben, thanks to you all, and we'll be taking you back to Nairobi just a little later in the programme. And in London, we'll speak to a former top British diplomat to Kenya. Let's round up some of the rest of the international news for you. We're getting reports of a big explosion in Gaza City. These are unconfirmed so far. They speak of an Israeli aircraft attacking a training facility belonging to the Islamist Palestinian organisation Hamas, which of course rules Gaza. There was earlier a ground raid by the Israeli army on suspected Palestinian militants in the Gaza Strip. At least 5 people were killed in the attack near Khan Yunis. Israel says its soldiers are still operating in the area. 3 firefighters have died tackling a blaze that engulfed a 12-story commercial building in northwestern China. It broke out in the city of Urumqi in Xinjiang province on Wednesday night and spread to a hotel next door. That had to be evacuated. The militant French farmer José Bové has begun a hunger strike in protest against genetically modified crops. He's been joined by a group of activists who aim to increase pressure on the French government to impose a long-term ban on GM crops. World Business Report coming up in 25 minutes. First, Tanya's here with a taster. All that glisters, as they say, is not gold.
All that glisters certainly is not gold, no, but the gold price is pushing up. It's just one of the commodities trading at record high prices around the world. The weakening dollar means that commodity prices rise to maintain their world value, and gold is taking advantage of that. It soared past $866 per troy ounce. Helping the rise also is its status as a safe haven investment and hedge for inflation. And what's causing the inflation? Well, one of the factors is the price of oil. It's holding close to its lifetime high as $100 a barrel. Worries over dollar weakness and low stocks in America have helped it stay close to the peak reached during Wednesday's trade in New York. Now, the worries are that the latest spike could be enough to push the world's largest economy into recession. More on all of that here on the BBC's World Business Report. Do join me in 25 minutes. I look forward to seeing you. Bye.
We'll do that. See you then. Thanks a lot, Cindy. This is World News Today from BBC World. It's good to have you with us. The sport coming up. Plus, the election race really is on. The US presidential nomination process is getting underway in Iowa.
Voice of the East. Experience a journey of the soul. Hangzhou, China.
Latest diets. 1,800,000 results? Miracle Bud? Coffee and peanut diet. Tummy sponge? If it sounds absurd and unhealthy, chances are it is. Diets don't work. Weight Watchers does. And now with Weight Watchers Online, you learn to live healthy on our easy-to-follow plan entirely online. With countless tips, tools, recipes, over 30,000 food options, and that crazy little thing called results. Go to WeightWatchers.com/free for a free week trial. Weight Watchers. Stop dieting. Start living.
Every weekday afternoon on BBC America is a life-changing experience.
My way or the highway.
Starting at 3, how clean is your house? Then at 4, you are what you eat.
You have got to be sorted out.
Transform your afternoons. Weekdays starting at 3.
You're with BBC World. This is World News Today. My name's Mike Embley. The main news this hour. Police in Kenya have used tear gas and water cannon to stop an opposition rally against the presidential elections. Now been rescheduled for tomorrow. Well, talking about elections, this may seem like an odd place to open one. A farm state where hogs outnumber people 5-1. But the 2008 US presidential election begins in earnest in Iowa today. And the results could make or break the campaigns of those hoping to become the most powerful person in the world. Now, unlike a primary, which is a simple vote between candidates, the Iowa Caucuses are a gathering of politically active citizens. Republicans conduct a non-binding straw vote to gauge individual candidates' support. Democrats gather in preference groups. A candidate must gain 15% or more. Well, not many voters take part, to be honest, but the outcome is hugely important. 11 of the past 13 party nominees have won, either Iowa or New Hampshire, or both.
40-38. The final push in a race that's still wide open. Here on the streets of Iowa, 2 college students fighting for attention and the freezing cold temperatures to drum up support for their candidate John Edwards. But on the doorstep, evidence that their rivals have been here before.
I'm calling you from the Barack Obama campaign.
It's inside that you can see the frenetic activity. This one of hundreds of phone banks that have been set up, pleading for support as the final hour fast approaches. For the candidates, the question now, will their hard work pay off? For the Democrats, the frontrunners are Barack Obama with his message of change.
We can reach for something bigger and something better.
I believe it is
Hillary
time.
Clinton, who hopes her experience will count, and still in with a shout, John Edwards, the anti-Washington candidate.
The extraordinary thing about Iowa is that for any voter who's wanted to, they've had a chance to see and even meet the candidates in the flesh, like here at a rally for Hillary Clinton. This is democracy, up close and personal.
One of the problems The Republicans, too, have been crisscrossing Iowa. It's the rock and roll loving Baptist preacher Mike Huckabee who's fired up evangelical voters. He's now neck and neck with the Mormon Mitt Romney, whose deep pockets have helped raise his profile. And no one's yet writing off the Vietnam veteran John McCain. For Iowans mulling over the bewildering choice of candidates, it's not just about policy. In this bar, they were having their own dry-run caucus based on who they'd most like to buy a drink.
The likability factor is really important.
The winners of this unscientific sample: for the Democrats, Bill Richardson; for the Republicans, Rudy Giuliani, neither seen as among the front-runners here. But it's still impossible to say who'll be celebrating when the real votes are counted.
Jonathan Beale reporting there from Des Moines. Well, let's go now to the convention centre in Des Moines in Iowa, the BBC's John Sopel. John, it's a long drawn-out process for sure, but this is democracy up close and personal, isn't it?
It's democracy in a way that sort of
gives the lie to that politics is all about big money, it's all about what the media commentators think. It really is up close and personal. And you know that if you've got an axe to grind, there's a fair chance you're going to be able to grind it with one of the leading contenders who is running to get the nomination for either the Democratic or Republican Party. One of the American comedians who came back on air last night, Jay Leno, joked that what does the word caucus mean? It means the one time in the year when people care a damn about what people in Iowa think. That was his definition of what a caucus means. But for the people who are taking part in those caucuses tonight, they're at the centre of political gravity. And how they kind of, wherever they meet in their church halls or fire stations or school gyms, wherever it happens to be, what they decide in those 1,700 precincts across the state, it really can have a major impact on who is in the race for the White House come November.
And the impossible question, of course, but any sense at all who's likely to be celebrating?
Do you mind if I just duck now and avoid that question altogether? I could do the classic thing, only time will tell. We'll know at 10 o'clock tonight here in this convention centre, they're going to announce it. But the latest polls have put everybody very, very close indeed. You've got a three-way race essentially for the Democratic nomination. You've got, as we were hearing there, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama and John Edwards. And on the Republican side, it's Mitt Romney versus Mike Huckabee. I've just been listening to Mitt Romney speaking, and he was, I thought, trying to lower expectation. He just gave an interview in which he was saying in the past few moments, even if I came second, that would be a good result. And so there's a certain amount of expectation management. So even whatever the results are, when we get them later today, what you'll also be seeing is everybody trying to put their spin on what that results means, because people want to be able to say, I'm still in this race, I'm still fighting, I'm going to be in New Hampshire, I'm still a credible candidate.
There does seem to be genuine surprise registering, John, that Huckabee has come through so strongly.
Yeah, and he's amusing, he's folksy, he's also got here a relatively good organisation, because he's got the backing of the evangelical groups, and they have done a lot of the heavy lifting in his campaign for him. Mitt Romney has got a much more extensive network here in Iowa, but what Huckabee has got is he's got the support of the conservative evangelical groups, and that could prove decisive, because they are committed, they're well organised, and they will turn out in the freezing temperatures. And it is just worth mentioning just how cold it is, because that could have a deterrent effect on people who are kind of, they're interested but they're not 100% committed. Will they turn out tonight to go to caucus when the temperatures are -11 or -12 degrees?
John, thanks for turning out for us. Bye for now. And of course you will be able to follow all the developments in Iowa as the candidates face their first real challenge in the race for the White House here on BBC World. Now, what's been grabbing your attention on the BBC website, bbc.com? Well, these are the top 10 stories you've been downloading. Among them, one of the python in Australia that was rushed to the vet for emergency stomach surgery. Seems this hungry snake swallowed 4 golf balls. It had mistaken them for eggs. He could be forgiven. The balls were placed in a chicken coop to encourage the hens to lay. Another much-viewed story, the one of Antonio Nunes, the man in charge of enforcing Portugal's new anti-smoking laws, when he got caught on camera lighting up in a casino. The country's smoking restrictions came into force on New Year's Day, and they include casinos. Mr. Nunes has said he'll be looking into the law, in his words. Finally, fans of the Flashman series of books will have been sad to read about the death of the author, George MacDonald Fraser, at the age of 82. He started his career as a journalist in Scotland before making a name for himself with 12 novels about the classic Victorian cad Flashman and his adventures as an army officer. More detail, more analysis, and all the news, bbc.com. Just click on the news section. Now, Adnan is here with the latest sport. Just 11 days to go before the start of the first major tennis event.
Yep, that's right. It's the Australian Open in Melbourne, so everybody's warming up. And indeed, in Perth, Australia, the United States have won through to their 9th final in the 20-year history of the Hopman Cup tennis tournament. Serena Williams opened the USA's final round-robin tie against Australia with a straight sets defeat of Alicia Molik. In the men's singles, Serena's teammate Mardy Fish then beat Peter Luchak with 2 successive tiebreaks. So at that stage, the USA already had an unassailable lead. But they went one better. They joined forces, they won the doubles as well, and the USA, well, they've taken 3 of the previous 5 Hopman Cup titles. With this team, they look as if they'll take some stopping in the final on Friday. In the NHL, the Detroit Red Wings have moved 11 points clear of the Western Conference after a 4-1 home victory over their closest rivals, the Dallas Stars. Detroit took the lead after 12 minutes. Dan Cleary's first effort blocked. Then Cleary made no mistake with the rebound. That's his 13th goal of the season. The home side doubled their advantage in the second period. Johan Franzen showing some wonderful skill, skating down the rink, sending the Dallas goalie Marty Turco the wrong way and then slipping the puck into an empty net. Dallas Drake put Detroit 3 up, and then Pavel Datsyuk showed wonderful hand-eye coordination. Watch this, deflecting that slap shot to make it 4-0. There was a consolation for the Stars, but it's the Red Wings who are the best in the West at the moment. The American sprinter Justin Gatlin is to challenge the 4-year suspension which will prevent him from defending his Olympic 100 metres title in Beijing. An arbitration panel halved the ban the American received for a positive test back in 2006, but his agent has now said his client may file a federal lawsuit, appeal to the world governing body for athletics, or even go to the ultimate arbiter, the Court of Arbitration for Sport in Switzerland. Well, Gatlin could have received a lifetime ban because this past offence was his second. His appeal will almost certainly centre on the fact his first offence in 2001 was due to him taking amphetamines to treat attention deficit disorder. That's it, Mike.
Adnan, many thanks. See you later. Thanks to you for being with us in the next half hour here on World News Today. Tanya will be back with World Business Report, much more in that. Plus, America's late night talk shows return with or without those striking writers.
I'm Jaap van Ballegooien, Chief Engineer for Shell. For the last 2 years, I've been wrestling with a bit of a problem.
I just got a geological survey. It's exactly what we didn't want to hear.
Actually, it's a problem that confronts us all.
We all know easily accessible oil is a thing of the past.
And this is Max. He's more my problem.
Hoe laat is nu bij jullie?
As far as you can see, are thousands of smaller pockets of oil. The trouble is, as it stands, we'd have to build thousands of other platforms just to reach them. Economically and environmentally, that's just not acceptable.
As Max never fails to remind me.
Welk mooi stukje van de aarde ben je nou weer aan het boren?
He's got his own views on my work.
Je speelt zaterdag? Ik zit op de bank. Maar misschien zou je eens een avondje vroeg naar bed moeten.
Sometimes we all need to look at things from a different angle.
Wat?
Doe dat nog eens. I thought of calling it the bendy straw drill. The flexibility means the drill can snake through all of these hidden oil pockets from a single offshore platform. And fewer wells means less disruption and less waste. It just shows you that solutions can be found in the most unlikely places.
Ground and around the world. Taking you everywhere and taking care of everything. Thai, smooth as silk.
If you have difficulty getting in and out of the tub, you don't have to worry anymore. Premier Bathrooms brings freedom and safety to your life.
Yeah, we were afraid of someone falling in the tub and having an accident.
There's no uncertainty about stepping in. It's very safe.
Makes me feel that I don't have to worry about her.
Premier Bathrooms custom bath enclosures are easy to step into. Feature sturdy hand grips and safety bars, secure locking mechanisms, and contoured seating.
Well, it was marvelous. Very relaxed.
Just wonderful.
Rejuvenate yourself with Premier Bathrooms hydrotherapy jets. You don't have to fear slipping and falling anymore. Call Premier Bathrooms for yourself or call for someone you love. Call now and Premier Bathrooms will send you a free information kit.
Call 1-888-325-4189.
A new and improved and even more confusing diet seems to hit the shelf every single day. Like, look at this one. Day 2 on diet. Page 107. I mean, what am I supposed to eat for the 3 days it takes to read the first 106 pages? Diets don't work. Weight Watchers does. It isn't a diet. It's about learning a healthy way to eat, cook, and live. And our new Kickstart Toolkit makes it easy to lose weight right away. The right way.
Call 1-800-491-5959.
Or go to weightwatchers.com/kickstart. And join now to get free registration and a new Kickstart Toolkit. Weight Watchers. Stop dieting. Start living.
Tomato. Tomato.
Tomato.
Tomato.
Tomato.
Tonight at 7 and 10. The road to Washington starts in Iowa, and BBC World News America is there. Matt Fry reports live from the Iowa Caucuses, bringing you closer to the candidates, the voters, and taking you inside the process of picking a president. BBC World News America, live from Iowa. Weeknights at 7 and 10 on BBC America, and around the globe on BBC World.
The latest headlines from BBC World News. Police in Kenya have forced the opposition to call off a demonstration against the presidential election. The security forces clashed with protesters trying to reach the centre of Nairobi for a planned mass rally. There are reports the rally will now be, there'll be an attempt to hold the rally again tomorrow. Israeli forces have killed at least 5 people in another raid against suspected Palestinian militants in Khan Yunis in the Gaza Strip. And Israeli planes hit 3 buildings connected with Islamic Jihad in air raids on Gaza. Financial markets have reacted nervously as oil tops $100 a barrel in American markets for the first time. Prices have eased today, but oil is expected to dominate the global economic agenda this year. The 2008 U.S. presidential election race begins in earnest in Iowa today. Both the Republican and Democratic races are seen as unusually open as contenders try to gather early momentum for what is a long campaign. Welcome back to World News Today. My name's Mike Embley. Intense international efforts have been going on to try to ease the crisis in Kenya. Britain and the United States are among those urging both sides to accept outside help. The former Archbishop of Cape Town, the Nobel Peace Prize winner, of course, Desmond Tutu, is in Nairobi to try to start mediation. With me is Sir Edward Clay, former British High Commissioner to Kenya, and in Nairobi, I think, Maina Kiai, Chairman of the National Commission for Human Rights in Kenya. Maina Kiai, if we can just go to you first, thanks for joining us once again.
Thank you.
This rally, as far as we can tell, the rally has been, the opposition rally, the show of strength has been postponed until tomorrow at least. Presumably it's going to be no more acceptable to Kenya's police tomorrow than it was today.
Well, I suppose that might be true, but I think that Kenyans have shown resilience in the past. And I think in 1997, we as Kenyans used to come to the streets every weekend to come and demonstrate, and always started small. And as it went on, I think we grew and grew in strength. So I think there is the history of experience here that I suspect you will see coming from ODM in this issue. I don't think this issue is going to die away because the police are on the street, and I think at some point this country will not be able to function if every day the city and the country is at standstill because of the threats from the police and the threats perhaps of violence from the other side. We are arguing at the National Commission that indeed it's important for the government to allow the ODM to have a chance to vent, to a chance to express themselves. And in fact, we believe that it's important that the ODM be charged with the responsibility of providing security in that time, and then we can see whether they're for real or not. I think it's wrong, and it's...
Forgive me, there's obviously the fundamental issue of how best to restore to all the people of the country a sense of a reliable democratic process, but also how best to halt this violence. Do you feel that Raila Odinga could rein in the violence? His tactic seems to be to give the government as many problems as possible in as many areas as possible. There's a risk, though, isn't there, that peaceful protest can spiral into violence when there are so many impoverished, jobless young men around.
I think there again there's experience and from this country ourselves where we have done peaceful protests in the past and have done it successfully. In fact, the time when violence starts is when the police intervene. So it's not about us not being able to do it, even though we have been jobless and poor in the past. I think that now what's needed is statesmanship from both Raila Odinga, but much, much more so from Mwai Kibaki. He has not even acknowledged that there's a crisis in the country. And he's acting as though he's living in a different world from the rest of us. This is what's causing even more tension. And what we need right now is presidential statesmanship to come up and tell us that, look, guys, we have got a crisis, and this is the way I want us to resolve it. But when he keeps silent and government spokespeople keep saying that there are few skirmishes, is not so serious, it adds a sense of frustration. And as we all know as human beings, when we have periods like this across the world, the people need a chance to vent, need a chance to moan, need a chance to cry, and need a chance to celebrate. And what we need are those spaces of peace, those spaces of legitimate, peaceful expression. And that's what we are looking for at this point, to be able to begin addressing the political crisis that we've got right now.
Maina, Kiai, stay with us, please. Trevor Clay, former British High Commissioner to Kenya, is with us. As we were saying, Desmond Tutu is there. We understand that John Kufuor, Ghana's president, of course, but president of the African Union, has been told by Mwai Kibaki's ministers he's not welcome. It seems he's not going. What is your sense of how things might play out from here?
Well, I think that Kenyans, including Kenyan governments, are concerned about what outsiders think of them. I think that the presence of Desmond Tutu is a presence that they will respect. But the warning off of the Ghanaian chairman of the African Union smacks of a government that is sunk really in introspection. It's isolating itself from the people. It's arrogant, and it's not really concerned yet to listen carefully to what those outside its narrow circle are saying.
Yeah, there is a limit, isn't there, to how much pressure the former colonial powers can exert, even though Western powers give significant development aid and foreign companies, of course, bring major investment.
I think that's true. We do have quite a lot of potential influence in Kenya. I think we should not be too crude about saying, if you don't do this, we won't do that. That sort of thing with aid won't work with Kenyans, but we do have quite a lot of moral influence, and I think that we have to be prepared to say, look, we contributed our monitors to this election process. They, and more importantly, the Kenyan domestic observers, found this election flawed. If we sent monitors, why did we bother if we're not going to follow through and help you to find a way through this crisis? We have, I think, a moral obligation to do that.
Maina, Kiai, there in Nairobi, we've seen opposition supporters carrying branches and leaves very visibly to symbolise their peaceful intention, but others chanting or carrying placards reading "No Raila, no peace," which will read to most people like a clear threat of violence. There are reports of more clashes in Mombasa, heart of the tourist industry, also again in Eldoret in the northwest. Is it your sense that the violence is abating, or is this just a respite?
I am not sure I can give you a definitive answer on that, but my sense is that unless there's a sense of responsibility, particularly from Mwai Kibaki and then Raila Odinga, I don't think we will see the end of the anger of Kenyans at this point. You know, for Kenyans, we have been progressively improving on the conduct of our elections since 1992, and this is the first time we have actually gone backwards. We have believed in the right to vote before. And I think the impact of this move by Mwai Kibaki and the government is going to resonate with us way beyond 2008. It's going to have a big impact on us in the elections 2012 and beyond. And it's actually been a dramatic setback for us. We who have been believing in the right to vote, in the peaceful change of government that we have done before, this move has really hurt us in this country. And it's a pity that a cabal of a few men and maybe one or two women can decide the fate of millions and millions of Kenyans with a stroke of a pen.
Maina, thank you very much indeed. Just want to go back to Sir Edward briefly, if you can. My sense from your experience of the country is you think, in fact, this time Mwai Kibaki may be back to stay at least for another 5 years.
Well, I think that a responsible president in his position would be prepared to say to his chief opponent, look, let us first of all calm this country. Secondly, let us have an independent scrutiny with international participation and clear oversight by domestic civil society of the results. And if they're still ambiguous, let us play it again.
But briefly, there's an impending but in what you're saying. It doesn't sound like you think that's going to happen.
I don't think he's the kind of man, I don't think the people around him are the kind of people to let it happen.
Sir Edward Clay, Maina Kiai, thank you both very much indeed. Well, you're with World News Today from BBC World. In 10 minutes, America's popular late-night talk shows return to the screen, some with the union's blessing, others without. Before that, Tanya's here with World Business Report.
Mike, thanks very much. Coming up in the programme, in the driving seat, Ford prepares to sell Jaguar and Land Rover to India's Tata. That after this short break.
I love Beijing. It's changing, yet it's still a city full of traditions. Traditions like drinking tea, one of my real passions. There are over 1,000 varieties, and my friends say that I'm a kind of expert. But shouldn't traditions like these be shared? That's why I like working at Intercontinental. I can use my local knowledge to help our guests, so that when they go home, they have more to share.
But without platforms, you cannot access the oil. So what are you going to do?
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
On Comedy Friday, cutting-edge comedy that comes from the heart and goes for the throat.
Where's my phone? It's on vibrate, but it's no substitute.
Couple back-to-back episodes at 8. The Catherine Tate Show, all new at 9:20. Friday, starting at 8.
Business Report is sponsored by Chisholm, powering a greener tomorrow.
Oil, gold and platinum hit record highs as the dollar's slide continues. And Ford puts India's Tata in the driving seat in the race for Jaguar and Land Rover. Hello, welcome to the BBC's World Business Report. I'm Tanya Beckett. Oil prices have hit record highs around the world. The US benchmark NYMEX light topped $100 a barrel before falling back late on Wednesday. Many attribute the peak to a single rogue trade, but that doesn't negate the trend. Oil's seemingly unstoppable rise from the world's largest oil-consuming nation, the US. Karen Nye sends this report.
Oil traders rush to get back in the game after a slow holiday period.
Here at the New York Mercantile Exchange, oil has traded above $100 a barrel for the first time ever. It was an actual paper trade, the old-fashioned way, just one trader shouting a price to another. What an exciting way to start out the trading year for one of the world's most basic commodities.
Bullish traders welcomed Wednesday's price spike.
I believe we're going to hit 100 and actually go through there. I believe we're going to be trading 115 within the next couple of months.
Logic. Some analysts dismissed the move as pure speculation on the part of traders.
These are people are betting their hard money that oil prices will go up. So guess what? They are cheering for higher oil prices.
The rally may be speculative, but the effects on the economy are almost guaranteed.
Higher oil prices or $100 oil will eventually dampen demand growth. We're already seeing signs of that. 2, it will slow down economic growth. 3, it will push inflation up.
Even technical traders can boil down the maths to basics for the consumer.
The story of $100 has really been developing for a while, and today's just the affirmation of what you were feeling at home economically.
On Thursday, a new report on oil supplies is expected to give another nod to the bulls, who could well push prices higher. Karen Nye, BBC News, New York.
Well, most commodities, as is oil of course, are priced in US dollars. So when the dollar falls, commodity prices rise to maintain their value. For this reason, gold hit another record high. It soared past $864 per troy ounce. And many believe the precious metal is set to hit new peaks in the coming weeks, maybe topping $880. Record high commodity prices stoke inflation, of course, also at a time when many of the world's economies are weakened by the gloomy outlook for America. America is the world's top trading partner and biggest consumer, so when Americans stop buying, the whole world suffers. Add to this the dollar's decline, which makes foreign goods dearer for ordinary Americans, and you have a double whammy of epic proportions. I spoke to Jamie Chisholm, he's the deputy markets editor of the Financial Times, and he told me that inflation is becoming more of a concern to economists.
The oil price in particular is inflationary. Food prices, as not just China but everywhere else, are going up. They are concerned about inflation. Rather strangely, though, it was very interesting yesterday that US bond yields fell so sharply. Long bond yields fell quite a lot despite this inflationary concern. And there was quite a few paradoxes in the market yesterday in the way it behaved.
Do you think that this really could turn the corner now from being a slowdown for the United States into a recession because of these concerns about inflation curbing the ability of the central bank in the US to cut rates?
That's the big concern. What we don't want to be seeing is any data coming out of the US which suggests stagnation plus inflation. Because quite rightly you say that it means the Federal Reserve, whose mandate is to keep employment at reasonable levels and to make sure inflation doesn't take off, it reduces the ability for them to cut interest rates. Now, the minutes yesterday suggested they are still very worried about growth, but they always have to keep saying in those minutes that they keep an eye on inflation. That's their job. We shall see what happens. But at the moment, the data is going to be really key here.
Europe, meanwhile, appears to be moving along in a fairly confident manner. Could that all change very suddenly?
Well, it depends if you believe in the theory of decoupling, which is supposed to suggest that it was the case once when the US sneezed, the rest of the world caught a cold. Now, if the US sneezes, the rest of the world just says gesundheit and walks on its way. But if we don't have decoupling and the US economy does slow down, I really can't see how Europe won't be affected by this. Sure, some of the slack will be taken up by the more dynamic economies such as China and India, Brazil, etc. But Europe will start slowing if the US goes into recession, certainly.
Worries about the US economy. Moving on to the auto sector, Ford has confirmed an Indian rival is in pole position to buy its Jaguar and Land Rover units. Tata Group has been chosen as the preferred bidder for the luxury brands, according to a company memo to workers in the UK. Tata is one of the many successful Indian companies choosing to expand overseas. It already owns Anglo-Dutch steelmaker Chorus. From Mumbai, the BBC's Karishma Vaswani charts the rise of one of India's stars.
This was the moment when India's Tata Group declared its victory to the world. In January of 2007, the chairman of the group, Ratan Tata, bought over British steelmaker Chorus for around $11 billion.
Many thought it was an audacious move because an Indian company making a bid for a European steel company, much larger in tonnage size, was something that had not happened before.
The deal catapulted the Tatas into the league of global steelmakers. But buying British steelmaker Chorus wasn't the Tata Group's first foray into the UK. In 2000, the family-run firm bought Tetley Tea, its first international acquisition, for some $400 million. Small change when you think about what the company's spending these days on overseas takeovers. They also run the luxury hotel group Taj, but being an Indian firm with global ambitions can be difficult. Tata's hotel arm has made headlines recently by demanding an apology from the boss of American hotel chain Orient Express, who said an alliance with the Indian firm would be unsuitable for their brand. Those image issues proving to be a problem for Tata Motors as well. Jaguar dealers in the US aren't too keen on an Indian car maker as the owner of the luxury brand. They're worried customers might start to perceive Jaguar differently. Out here on the streets of Mumbai, and in fact all across India, the Tata Group is quickly becoming the symbol of India's global aspirations. It was a moment of great patriotic significance when the Tatas won over Chorus, and national pride here in India at that time was at its highest levels in decades. For corporate India and companies like the Tata Group, India has now become too small, and they've set their sights on new territories. Karishma Vaswani, BBC News, Mumbai.
And we're back to World News Today in just a moment. That's it from the BBC's World Business Report.
World Business Report is sponsored by Suzlon, powering a greener tomorrow. Some think breakfast. We think research. Some think privileged. We think customized solution. Some think 2 generations. We think succession planning. Whatever your vision, we at Credit Suisse seek new perspectives to make it a reality. In the air, on the ground, and around the world. Taking you everywhere and taking care of everything. Thai, smooth as silk.
Sunday. Dancing is as easy as BBC. BBC America. The show that had millions on their feet is now on BBC America.
Like watching Happy Feet all over again.
Dancing with the Stars. BBC America premiere. Sunday at 8 p.m.
Think you've seen it all? Think again.
On January 26th.
Ready?
Off we go. The premiere of an all-new season. Doctor Who at 7. Then at 9, BBC America's biggest hit ever returns.
Now when are the others coming?
They're already here. A new season of Torchwood. BBC America's Supernatural Saturday.
Nothing will ever be the same again.
Series premiere, Saturday, January 26th at 7 on Supernatural Saturday.
Tonight at 7 and 10. The road to Washington starts in Iowa, and BBC World News America is there. Matt Fry reports live from the Iowa Caucuses, bringing you closer to the candidates, the voters, and taking you inside the process of picking a president. BBC World News America, live from Iowa, weeknights at 7 and 10 on BBC America, and around the globe on BBC World.
With World News Today from BBC World. My name is Mike Embley. For the first time since the writers' strike began in Hollywood almost 9 weeks ago, many of America's late-night TV talk shows were back on air last night. Last week, The Late Show with David Letterman negotiated its own settlement with the Writers' Guild, paving the way for its return. Here's Talking Movies, Tom Brooke.
For David Letterman fans, it was a big night, joining the audience for the first new Letterman show since the writers walked out on November the 5th.
Oh, I'm excited. Came all the way from Canada.
I'm stoked. I'm so happy.
The Late Show with David Letterman is back on the air after having worked out its own interim deal with the Writers' Guild. The host looked different with a fresh beard. Guest Robin Williams was the star attraction, and Hillary Clinton also put in an appearance with a message from Iowa. Letterman's competition, The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, is also back. But like nearly every other returning show, it has no agreement with the Guild, no writers, no wordsmiths at work for his opening monologue, which lasted for more than 10 minutes. But Leno scored with his own big political guest, Republican presidential hopeful Mike Huckabee. The writers remain on the picket lines. Each side is using the media to promote its cause. The producers are putting out the line that the writers are unreasonable, while the writers present themselves as victims of a big media lockout with an urgent plea.
Please come back to the table. Please talk to us. They walked out on us. They wouldn't even hear our counter-proposal. Come back to the table and talk to us. We want to make a deal.
The fact that America's late-night TV talk shows are back on the air doesn't mean that the writers' strike is getting closer to being resolved. Talks between the two sides broke down almost 4 weeks ago. Relations have become very acrimonious. The strike could now move to a more dramatic level with some high-profile Hollywood casualties. Through the writers' actions, the Golden Globes, the top pre-Oscars award show, has been put in jeopardy. The Oscars themselves could be affected too.
Well, those shows will be affected in two ways, the award shows, because they will not have the writing staffs who write the material that are used on those shows, and also because other unions like the Screen Actors Guild have been very supportive and have been urging their members not to appear as presenters or acceptors of those awards.
Isn't this all very destructive, what you're doing?
We don't see it as destructive at all. What we see it as the labor struggle, as many people have called it, the first labor struggle of the 21st century, a case of determining what share of revenues that we should share for mind power as opposed to muscle power. We're striking not just for ourselves, but for future generations of writers, performers, all kinds of people in the entertainment industry.
The jokes may be back on American late-night television, but within the industry, there's little to laugh about. There's a real fear that this strike could now drag on for a very long time.
Tom Brooke there. Well, we're back for an hour of news and analysis. Same time tomorrow. The latest news from BBC World in just a few minutes. On the day, the political crisis being played out on the streets of Kenya took a new turn. The opposition's attempt at a show of strength, a mass protest at what they see as a stolen presidential election, faltered in the face of police tear gas and water cannon. They may try again tomorrow. For the first time, clashes in Mombasa, heart of the country's tourist industry. And Sir Edward Clay, former British High Commissioner to Kenya, told this programme he thought Mwai Kibaki might now weather this storm and survive as president for another 5 years. Thanks for being with us.
Some think startup. We think IPO. Some think competition. We think partnership. Some think successful business. We think wealth protection. Whatever your vision, we at Credit Suisse seek new perspectives to make it a reality.
The fastest growing economy in the world is being created in Qatar. The Qatar Financial Center, at the heart of business.
conditioner, and the lawnmower. Both are ideas from the minds of African Americans. Support the United Negro College Fund, because a mind is a terrible thing to waste.
This is a man who almost learned to walk at a rehab center that almost got built by people who almost gave money. Almost gave. How good is almost giving? About as good as almost walking.
To make it a reality.
On Big Thursday.
It's confused, over the top.
It's nothing personal.
I mean, absurd, beyond belief.
It's just business.
You're not a proper chef.
Reputations are at stake.
Well, it's a calling, really. Really is a calling.
Life savings are on the line.
I'm 102,000 euros in debt.
And these chefs are about to get served.
When's one of you going to step forward with a pair of bollocks?
Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares. Back-to-back episodes every Big Thursday starting at 8 on BBC America.
Kenya's Attorney General calls for an independent inquiry into the disputed presidential election. The protests go on. Israel hits Gaza again. At least 7 people are killed, including 3 civilians. I'm your woman. Or alternatively, I'm your man. The US presidential hopefuls square off in the crucial Iowa caucuses. This is BBC World. A very warm welcome from me, Mike Embley. Also in the programme, the low dollar pushes oil and gold to record highs. What is the spike doing to the world economy? And America's late-night talk shows return with or without these striking writers. Hello to you. Kenya's Attorney General has called for an independent inquiry into the country's disputed presidential election. Police in the capital, Nairobi, have fired live rounds and used tear gas on people trying to join an opposition rally, protesting at the outcome of last month's vote. The opposition, who claim Raila Odinga was the true winner of the election, called off the rally amid the clashes. They said they are planning to hold another demonstration, possibly tomorrow. The Attorney General, Amos Wako, has called for all ballot papers to be examined by an independent person or body. More than 300 people have been killed. 70,000 have fled their homes.
An act of defiance in a country in turmoil. Protesters taking to the streets even though it was banned and running into trouble. From early morning, there were clashes. The slums of Nairobi looking like a battleground. For hours, a game of cat and mouse. The army with its tear gas. The protesters, here at least, with only their taunts. Kenya, the model of stability, reduced to this.
Well, more tear gas has just been fired back into the crowd. People here insist that this is about defending democracy, about defending their rights. They believe the election was rigged. They're trying to reach the protest. They keep trying to inch forward, but the authorities are equally determined to hold them back.
Some opposition supporters saying they were ready to pay with their lives.
Me, I'm ready to die. They can even shoot us. But we want our rights. We vote for change. We didn't vote for corrupt people.
But President Mwai Kibaki is hanging on, insisting he's the rightful leader, as things around him go up in flames. His people flee, wondering where to run. The opposition knows it can bring crowds onto the streets at will. It wants a rerun of the presidential election, though it has agreed to international mediation. Today, the water cannon did the talking, but a powerful voice was raised, calling for a peaceful solution.
We want to stand with the people and
seek to encourage them to find non-violent ways of coming to agreement.
The rally has now been postponed till tomorrow, when the protesters will set off all over again. Kenya could be facing a long-running crisis. It has already paid a high price in lives lost and damage to the country. One newspaper here even calling it a smouldering ruin. Orla Guerin, BBC News, Nairobi.
And we'll take you in just a few moments to our correspondent Karen Allen, who's in Eldoret, where of course there was particularly horrific violence just the other day, and there are reports of more violence there in just a few moments. Moving on, the Israeli armed forces have launched new attacks on the Gaza Strip. They've been targeting what they say was the infrastructure of Palestinian militants. As far as we can establish, at least 5 people have been killed. That includes 3 civilians in a house hit by an Israeli tank shell. Well, let's get the latest from our correspondent Aleem Makboul. Aleem is in Ramallah in the West Bank. Aleem, what can you tell us?
Well, that death toll has now risen to 7 because Israeli troops moved into the Gaza Strip before dawn in the south of the territory, and there were clashes close to the border fence, close to residential areas as well, with local gunmen. In one incident, a house was hit by an Israeli tank shell. At least 3 of those who died there from the same family are thought to have been civilians, according to medical sources. 2 also were militants killed in the same attack. Since then, there have also been airstrikes in the south of the territory, and the operation now seems to have been widened with more airstrikes on Gaza City as well.
Aleem, obviously the Israeli army says it's trying to put a stop to the firing of rockets across the border. There are bound to be questions asked, though, aren't there, not for the first time, about the use of tank shells in one of the most densely populated areas in the world.
Well, but this has been the policy of the Israeli army for not just the last few months, but before that. It is very difficult to know what they should do. They certainly have struggled with different tactics, which haven't ultimately stopped the rockets. Another was fired this morning at the Israeli city of Ashkelon, though no one was injured. It is very difficult to know what the Israeli military, at least, should do. They have tried different tactics. They've also tried various sanctions on the territory. It's now very difficult to get goods in or out. It's difficult for people to come in or out, but still the rockets keep coming. But it does seem, at least with this latest incursion, that the troops are now beginning to withdraw, although the airstrikes are continuing.
Understood. Aleem, thank you very much. Well, more of the main international news. 3 firemen have died tackling a blaze that engulfed a 12-story commercial building in northwestern China. The fire broke out in the city of Urumqi in Xinjiang province on Wednesday night. Then it spread to a hotel next door, and that had to be evacuated. About 2,000 people usually work in the building where the fire started. Officials fear there may be other casualties still to be found. The man who introduced Formula One to China has been sentenced to 4 years in prison for corruption. Yu Jifei, the former boss of Shanghai's motor racing circuit, has been jailed for embezzling public funds. He's one of a growing list of casualties from the Shanghai corruption scandal, in which many senior figures have been expelled from the Communist Party. The South Korean boxing champion Choi Yo-sam has been declared officially dead. Doctors took him off a life support machine. He collapsed after successfully defending his world title last week and fell into a coma. Doctors had kept him alive at the request of his family, so his death would not fall on the anniversary of his father's. Well, some markets now from Tanya, and much else, I suspect.
Yes, absolutely. Of course, this oil price pushing through $100 has raised a lot of questions about where the U.S. economy is going in 2008, because the spectre of inflation has suddenly come into view. Let's take a look at what the European markets are doing. They're pretty much picking up the tone set by Wall Street, where we saw a slide of 220 points. And as I say, inflation playing a large part there, but also we had some rather unfortunate manufacturing numbers from the United States, which also worried people about what the prospects for growth were this year. Well, as we know, many commodities, most of them in fact, are priced in US dollars and traded right around the world. So with the weakening dollar, that means that world currencies now become more expensive versus the dollar. So that means, of course, when the dollar falls, commodity prices rise to maintain their value. Gold hit another record high and is soaring past $864 per troy ounce. Many believe the precious metal is set to hit new peaks in the coming weeks, maybe topping $880. Meanwhile, as we mentioned, oil is holding close to its lifetime high of $100 a barrel. Worries over dollar weakness and low stocks in America have helped it close to the peak reached during Wednesday's trade in New York. The worries are that its latest spike may be enough to push the world's largest economy into recession. Meanwhile, Ford has confirmed an Indian rival is in pole position to buy its Jaguar and Land Rover units. Tata Group has been chosen as the preferred bidder for the luxury brands, according to a company memo to workers in the UK. Tata is one of many successful Indian companies choosing to expand overseas. It already owns Anglo-Dutch steelmaker Chorus. So, that's the business news for the moment. Back to you.
Thank you very much indeed. See you later. Thanks to you for being with us. Stay with BBC World if you can. Still to come on the programme. A big entrance on the small screen. America's late-night talk shows return with or without striking writers.
I've lived in Paris most of my life. One of my passions is spending Saturday mornings wandering through my favorite market, discovering vintage haute couture. But what's a passion if you can't share it? That's why I work at Intercontinental. I get the chance to share my local knowledge with our guests, so that hopefully they go home a little more inspired.
Well, I'm sure I'd think of something.
Ground and around the world. Taking you everywhere and taking care of everything. Thai, smooth as silk.
Confused, over the top.
It's nothing personal.
I mean, absurd beyond belief.
It's just business.
You're not a proper chef.
Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares. Back-to-back episodes every big Thursday starting at 8 on BBC America.
Let's take you back now to our main story this hour. Events in Kenya, which have been moving fast. We can go live to Nairobi, the capital. Our correspondent Ben Brown is there. Ben, what is the latest from there?
Well, the violence has been continuing for much of the day in the run-up to what we thought was going to be a mass rally by the opposition, the ODM. In the end, they were forced to call off that rally. They had actually called for something like 1 million people to take to the streets and to gather in Uhuru Park here in Nairobi and to protest against last week's presidential election results, which they say were a fix and a fraud and that the whole thing was rigged. We were down on the streets with some of the demonstrators as they were trying to get through the security cordons. The security forces had blocked off road after road around the city centre, and the demonstrators tried to push their way through. They lit tyres, they set fire to barricades, they set fire to some buildings too, trashed a shopping centre we saw, and they tried to get through to the city centre, but the security forces kept driving them back with a combination of water cannon and tear gas and even some live ammunition fired into the air and charges with truncheons and sticks and so on. So in the end, I don't know if there would have been 1 million people anyway, but whatever protesters were hoping to get to the park to protest, they couldn't get there, and in the end the opposition had to call it off, and they've now said that they want demonstrators to try again tomorrow and have a rally of a similar size tomorrow.
Ben, just briefly, these reports that Kenya's Attorney General has called for an independent inquiry. How does that feed into the situation?
Well, that is a possible route to a compromise, possibly. I stress possibly. Really early days to say that. Of course, a lot of pressure from the international community on the government here and the opposition to get together, to start talking, to find some sort of formula, some sort of compromise that can pull Kenya back from the brink of this terrible crisis, because there is violence every day, and unless there is a compromise, the stage is set, I'm afraid, for more violence tomorrow if the demonstrators try again tomorrow to have a rally.
Ben in Nairobi, many thanks. And we're still trying to get through to our correspondent Karen Allen, who's in Eldoret in northwestern Kenya, where we understand there have been more clashes, but communications are difficult. Now, it might just be the beginning of the end of American telly addicts' worst nightmare. Several of the most popular late-night talk shows in the US have returned to the screens, nearly 2 months after the strike by writers halted production.
It was a spectacular end to a 2-month hiatus. David Letterman brought on the Dancing Girls to mark a deal with the Writers' Union, which got his show back on the air. 8 weeks of repeats have seen his audience plummet.
Ladies and gentlemen, 2 long months, but by God, I'm finally out of rehab.
Robin Williams was his guest, and there was also a cameo performance from presidential hopeful Hillary Clinton.
Dave has been off the air for 8 long weeks because of the writers' strike. Tonight, he's back. Oh well, all good things come to an end.
Only a few weeks ago, my first guest was an also-ran with a funny name in the Republican presidential campaign.
Letterman's main rival, Jay Leno, doesn't have a deal with the writers, so not only is he crossing the picket line, he's having to persuade his guests to do the same.
Huckabee, ladies and gentlemen!
Presidential hopeful Mike Huckabee was happy enough to do so. Does all this mark a watershed in Hollywood's biggest strike in 20 years?
It's going to be tricky because I think if a lot of people do start coming back to work without their writers, it might cause a little bit of division and a little bit of confusion among some people that, well, now if they're going to go back to work, well then how come everybody isn't just going to go back to work? Hopefully the audiences at home will see that the show isn't the same show without its writers.
The big question here, how funny is Jay Leno without a team of people to write his jokes? Not just on this show, but if the strike drags on, in weeks to come.
You can't write stuff like this. Great.
With other late-night hosts also returning to the air, the question is, will the big stars cross the picket lines? And in the run-up to the Oscars, will national TV exposure prove too great to resist? David Willis, BBC News, Los Angeles.
This is BBC World, the main news this hour. The Attorney General in Kenya has called for an independent inquiry into the disputed presidential election. And Israel has launched new attacks on the Gaza Strip targeting Palestinian militants. At least 7 people have been killed, including 3 civilians in a house hit by an Israeli tank shell.
Hello, I'm Adnan Nawaz. Coming up in half an hour in sport today, the city of Barcelona celebrates. Both of its biggest football clubs are through to the last 16 of the Copa del Rey. Mixing politics and sport, the British government may ban Zimbabwe's cricketers from touring England in 2009. And its farewell to Lawrence Bruno Nero Dallaglio, the former England captain and World Cup winner, retires from International Rugby Union.
Now, it may seem like an odd place to open an election, a farm state where hogs outnumber people 5-1. The 2008 US presidential election begins in Iowa today, and the results could make or break the campaigns of those hoping to become the most powerful person in the world. Unlike a primary, which is a simple vote between candidates, the Iowa Caucuses are a gathering of politically active citizens. Republicans conduct a non-binding straw vote to gauge individual candidates' support. Democrats gather in preference groups. A candidate must gain 15% or more. To be honest, not many voters take part, but the outcome is hugely important. 11 of the past 13 party nominees have won either Iowa or New Hampshire or both.
The final push in a race that's still wide open. Here on the streets of Iowa, 2 college students fighting for attention and the freezing cold temperatures to drum up support for their candidate John Edwards. But on the doorstep, evidence that their rivals have been here before.
I'm calling you from the Barack Obama campaign.
It's inside that you can see the frenetic activity. This one of hundreds of phone banks that have been set up, pleading for support as the final hour fast approaches. For the candidates, the question now, will their hard work pay off? For the Democrats, the frontrunners are Barack Obama with his message of change.
We can reach for something bigger and something better.
I believe it is
Hillary
time.
Clinton, who hopes her experience will count, and still in with a shout, John Edwards, the anti-Washington candidate. The extraordinary thing about Iowa is that for any voter who's wanted to, they've had a chance to see and even meet the candidates in the flesh, like here at a rally for Hillary Clinton. This is democracy, up close and personal.
One of the problems
The Republicans, too, have been crisscrossing Iowa. It's the rock and roll loving Baptist preacher Mike Huckabee who's fired up evangelical voters. He's now neck and neck with the Mormon Mitt Romney, whose deep pockets have helped raise his profile. And no one's yet writing off the Vietnam veteran John McCain. For Iowans mulling over the bewildering choice of candidates, it's not just about policy. In this bar, they were having their own dry-run caucus based on who they'd most like to buy a drink.
The likability factor is really important.
The winners of this unscientific sample: for the Democrats, Bill Richardson; for the Republicans, Rudy Giuliani. Neither seen as among the frontrunners here. But it's still impossible to say who'll be celebrating when the real votes are counted.
Jonathan Beale there. Well, let's go live to the convention centre in Des Moines in Iowa. The BBC's John Sopel is there. John, glad to see you. It's still pretty early in the morning there, I know. What's the feeling?
Well, it's early in the morning, but we've already seen Mitt Romney in here doing the rounds of the US networks, Barack Obama out and about giving interviews. I mean, it really is very, very close indeed, both on the Democratic side and the Republican side, about who is going to win in Iowa. And as you were saying in your introduction, it really does matter to win here, because that gives you momentum to propel you onto the next race in New Hampshire in a few days' time. And the moment that the result is declared here later tonight, you can be sure that all the political machines will go. I should imagine it will be years before Barack Obama or a Hillary Clinton or a Mitt Romney talks to another Iowan again. But in the past few weeks, they are the only people that these political leaders from Washington have wanted to talk to, because it really does matter to get out there and campaign and be among the ordinary people and hear their concerns. And that's what they've been doing. It's incredibly tight. The polls are giving nothing away. It will be very, very interesting to see what happens tonight. But it will all focus on, as you were explaining, what happens in little town halls, little fire stations, little community centres, when people get together tonight and decide who they are going to back to be the contender for the White House come November. There's a very long road to travel before they get to that stage in November. But do well in Iowa, do well in Hampshire, and you are on your way to being the contender.
John in Des Moines, many thanks. And we'll bring you all that, of course, as it unfolds. Thanks for being with us here on BBC World. Stay with us.
In the air, on the ground, and around the world. Taking you everywhere and taking care of everything. Thai, smooth as silk.
The fastest growing economy in the world is being created in Qatar. The Qatar Financial Center, at the heart of business. Experience the essence of the East. Experience a journey of the soul. Hangzhou, China.
On
Comedy Friday. Cutting-edge comedy that comes from the heart and goes for the throat.
It's my phone. It's on vibrate, but it's no substitute.
Coupling, back-to-back episodes at 8. The Catherine Tate Show, all new at 9:20. Friday, starting at 8.
Now, for more than 2 decades, the Central Asian Republic of Turkmenistan has been pretty much a mystery to the outside world. The regime is certainly more famous for authoritarianism than fun. So how do people there enjoy themselves? Well, we sent Natalia and Talaba out to have fun, to test the nightlife in Turkmenistan and find out if it is possible to party under what most would call an oppressive regime.
This is one of the most isolated corners of our planet. A city of marble palaces, built by a man who turned this energy-rich nation into his very own. Sapar Murat Niyazev built golden statues to himself. He tolerated no dissent. There is no political freedom here. But what about entertainment?
It's Friday night in Ashgabat, and even though all of this looks rather glamorous, it does feel a bit empty. And so I've decided to take up a very difficult mission and find out whether there is nightlife in Turkmenistan.
Every bar we went to was full. Here, dancing carried late into the night. Dima and his girlfriend didn't want us to show their faces. But it's not the government they fear, it's their parents. They just don't want them to find out that they've been drinking. Whatever the outside world may think, they tell me, life here has plenty of bright moments. The bartender was more sober, but just as positive.
We don't have any restrictions here. People like to have fun. At night, all bars and cafes are really busy. It's cheap to go out here. Anyone can afford it.
Across town, another party. This time, a wedding celebration. These people may live under one of the most autocratic systems in the world. But apparently, lack of political choice doesn't mean lack of fun. Natalia Antlava, BBC News, Ashgabat.
And please don't tell my parents either. Many more details for you on bbc.com. Particularly on there, you'll like the python who snacked on golf balls, mistaking them for chicken eggs. He did find them under a hen. The farmer put them there because the hen was broody.
Simply heaven.
I'm Jaap van Ballegooien, Chief Engineer for Shell. For the last 2 years, I've been wrestling with a bit of a problem.
I just got a geological survey. It's exactly what we didn't want to hear.
Actually, it's a problem that confronts us all.
We all know easily accessible oil is a thing of the past.
And this is Max. He's more my problem.
Bob, hoe laat is het nu bij jullie?
As far as you can see, are thousands of smaller pockets of oil. The trouble is, as it stands, we'd have to build thousands of other platforms just to reach them. Economically and environmentally, that's just not acceptable.
As Max never fails to remind me.
Welk mooi stukje van de aarde ben je nou weer aan het boren?
He's got his own views on my work.
Je speelt zaterdag? Ik zit op de bank. Maar misschien zou je eens een avondje vroeg naar bed moeten.
Sometimes we all need to look at things from a different angle.
Wat?
Doe dat nog eens. I call calling it the bendy straw drill. The flexibility means the drill can snake through all of these hidden oil pockets from a single offshore platform. And fewer wells means less disruption and less waste. It just shows you that solutions can be found in the most unlikely places.
The fastest growing economy in the world is being created in Qatar. The Qatar Financial Center, at the heart of business.
Every weekday afternoon on BBC America is a life-changing experience.
My way or the highway.
Starting at 3, Kim and Aggie turn domestic disasters into dream homes. How clean is your house? Then at 4...
That is disgusting. Oh my God.
Dr. Gillian cuts Britain's biggest eaters down to size.
You have got to be sorted out.
You are what you eat. Transform your afternoons. Weekdays starting at 3 on BBC America.
Confused, over the top.
It's nothing personal.
I mean, absurd beyond belief.
It's just business.
You're not a proper chef.
Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares, weeknights at 6 on BBC America.
Nothing But Nets is a global campaign to fight one of the largest killers in Africa, malaria.
These kids are dying needlessly just because there's not a net over their beds. That's all we have in sports is nets. And you're telling me nets alone would save lives? That's the easiest thing ever.
So if you can log on to nothingbutnets.net, donate $10 and help us cover Africa.
"50 years after Tenzing Norgay and Ed Hillary climbed Everest, children still don't have schools. Young girls are sold into bondage, and Tibetans flee their homeland in despair. The American Himalayan Foundation builds schools, hospitals, and bridges. In a direct, effective way, we make life better for people in the Himalayas. Join us, the American Himalayan Foundation.
On BBC America, it's fierce.
What did you think about that?
It's competitive.
We really are going to go for it.
It's grueling.
You're killing me right now.
And it's bloody good fun.
There could have been a bit more quick step.
The dance